Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this big guy right here. This is the Herman Knives Mantis. Oh boy, this is a big one. But it's a really cool knife, and it's one I've been looking forward to checking out ever since it was released. But first off, before we go any further, I gotta let you know this guy was sent my way by the manufacturer as well as kind of the main retailer by Polish Custom Knives. This guy was sent to me. They reached out to me, said, "Hey Nick, Herman's got a new model, the Mantis. You interested?" I said, "Well, yeah, of course I am. At this point, I'm really interested in pretty much anything Herman does." But I told him, as always, I'm going to talk about the good, the great, the bad, the ugly. It might be a gem, it might be a junk. They did still send it along. Nonetheless, we do have to assume this is the very best quality controlled one of these guys ever, and I'm doing my best not to let this affect the nature or the quality of my review. Next thing, let's do some size comparison, and we're going to realize that this is not tiny. Right, here it is against the Spyderco PM2, which it is making look kind of small. Right, this is bigger than the PM2. Here it is against the Spyderco Delica, and what we're going to see here is, yeah, this is bigger than the Delica. Here it is against the Ontario Rat number 2, and what we're going to see here is, yeah, this is a big one. And then finally, I want to do a size comparison against some of Herman's other work here. I have right here the Herman Ishtar, and by the way, these have been done in similar style, which is a beautiful thing. Here it is against the Herman Knives Sting. This is a full dress edition of it because I have a problem. And here it is against the Herman Knives Vespertilio. And what we see here is that, yeah... Yep, this is a big one. In fact, this is one of the bigger knives Herman has made. It is smaller, actually, in terms of the handle, most certainly, than the Herman Knives Dragonfly, which is the one I think that is even bigger than this still. No longer have the Dragonfly. That went up for a charitable auction some time back, but it is still, this is a big knife, 100%. And it is also a pricey knife. I'm going to put this out there right at the beginning. This is a $2,200 pocket knife is configured. The base model of the Herman Mantis, of course, is about $700. You can get one that doesn't have the fancy treatment of the fancy materials, absolutely. But this particular knife, as it is configured right here, is about $2,200. That's a lot of money, but we'll talk about whether it's worth it. So let's go on ahead and talk about the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of this very interesting knife. So to start with, on the good side, this guy comes with a very, very nice box. I believe this to be the box for this, yeah. This is a very, very nice box. It is a solid chunk of wood from the feels of it with a little, clasp on the front of it there. You pop the knife open, and right here your box is sitting in, your knife's sitting in the box. It is custom milled to fit this exact pocket knife. There is very little rattle or anything around it. It is just a very, very nice little thing. And it is a very solid feeling object, right? It comes with a little slot for the tool, for the pivot, that we will actually leave out so I can talk about it in a little bit. But anyways, it's just a very nice box. Does that matter? No, but it is a nice thing to see. It also does come with a pouch, by the way, as well as a certificate of authenticity and whatnot. So there is that. Next thing, this has very nice ergonomics. This works really well in the hand, right? The clip is well positioned, and being as long as it is, it distributes the pressure well. It fits well in my relatively small hands, and it has enough kind of height to it that it doesn't want to rotate, even though the handle is very, very contoured. So I like that very much. Next thing, the inlay work on this is very good. I'll go on ahead and actually let me polish up the inlay a little bit here so you get the beauty of it there. But the inlay of this guy is very, very, very nice. Just using a little bit of eyeglass cleaner here. And what we're going to see is... oh, yeah, that's pretty good. That's excellent work. And more importantly, we see there are just no meaningful gaps around that inlay. There are little bits of chamfering in places to make sure that everything is consistent along the edges, but it is just incredibly good inlay work. It's very, very well done. You can see it's held in place by this one little screw right there in the middle, and that's a beautiful thing. And so I appreciate that inlay work very much. It works quite well. Next thing, clip on this guy. The clip on this guy is also a Damascus, and I'll go ahead and I'll polish that up while we're looking at it here. And what we're going to see here is, yeah, that's pretty attractive. It's also pretty long, which I actually like. On a long knife, I don't mind a long clip, right? And especially a relatively subtle one like this and a relatively attractive one. Yeah, that works. And I mean, if we just look at this clip, I mean, come on. Look at that. they've done a nice job with the materials there, putting a nice high polish on it before they flame it, as well as this little area underneath. And actually, all of this brings me to the fact that this knife generally has just really great details to it, right? Like, okay, for instance, the pivot on this guy is not free spinning because Herman has milled the pattern of the pivot head on the back here into the titanium. That's not an optical illusion. This is actually just, it's not a circular area there, right? So as a result, the pivot cannot turn on that side, and so as a result, you only turn it on this side, which is great. It has a nice, if you look at the lock bar on the inside there, you see this little bit of scalloping on the inside of the lock bar there, which makes this very, very easy to reach in and disengage. That's a nice little detail. The contouring of the knife, generally speaking, the handle of the knife is just broadly contoured, right? It's not a flat piece of titanium. The whole thing has a contour to it. It has a trace over it's a very nice thing. And look at how the milling lines are matching up very nicely across that's a beautiful thing. The internal milling on this guy is very, very nice. If we take a look in there, we can see, hopefully, let me get a little bit of light on the subject here. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of internal milling on here to reduce the weight overall, which is a very nice thing. We see that the screw heads themselves, these screws, by the way, this screw here, the end of this screw is this little stud right here, right? So this goes through to here. And so these three little things are actually the heads of the screws, the bottom of the screws, but they've been rounded over and polished. As a result, they look very, very nice. It's a little thing, but I really appreciate it. I think it looks great, and they end up at consistent height. They end up consistently polished. It looks really cool, and it's a little different, and it's not really something you see going on in the knife world elsewhere. The clip arrangement is very good. The clip itself is kind of carefully designed, makes the knife hang off to the side in your pocket like this, which is a great thing. But you also have this little area underneath the clip, which allows the clip to sit a little lower. But the fabric, even if you're wearing thicker fabric pants, these are very easy to get into there, as well as this little area up the top here where the contouring disappears, as well as where the texturing disappears, where the clip is sitting in your pocket, which is great. There are just chamfers everywhere. Every part of this knife has every edge broken. That is, except the blade edge. That one's important not to break. But it's beautifully chamfered everywhere. The back spacer and the clip line up. I'll kind of show you that. But the extent of the clip is the extent of the back spacer. The back spacer itself, I'll see if I can, I'll polish that up a little bit, which is also, in this case, a full-tie Damascus, which looks pretty solid. And there's also a little point to that back spacer. If you look inside there, yeah, that's a nice little detail. And just even the lasering for the name Herman is very, very clean. It's very well done. This is a knife that has a ton of details, and it's very clear that Bartosz Herman is trying really hard to make everything really good. And so I really appreciate that. This has an incredible, incredible amount of detail. Next thing, the action on this guy is great. This has a very nice detent. It is very easy to deploy, 100%. Very, very nice in that way. It's also very easy to undeploy because the easy lock bar access, that bit of scalloping here. And so this guy is absolutely great there. The whole thing is sort of a liner lock, except the liner that's unlocking it is only going from here to here. And in fact, this little screw is the one that's holding that liner in place. And so as a result, it's very, very good with a nice detent. Absolutely beautiful thing. And just generally speaking, I got to say, not only is it a good action, not only is it good material, good finishing, but the materials themselves are well treated. What I mean by that is that there are definitely makers out there that make knives that are just kind of a pound of exotic materials, but they're not done all that well. Maybe they skimp on machining because they put all that time, money into the materials themselves, or maybe they don't just finish them quite right. The polish isn't quite there, or the etch isn't quite what you want it to be, right? Maybe that's a possibility. Or you end up with an unnecessarily stiff clip because they're not used to the materials of Damascus or zirconium or something like that. Or they're using, it's a Damascus steel, or it is a pattern welded titanium, rather than picking out some of the best stuff. And so you end up with a knife that is kind of dressy or has these fancy materials, but doesn't really merit them, if that makes sense, where it's like the knife itself isn't fancy enough to match the materials. This is the opposite. This is a knife that does fancy materials, and Herman is a maker who does fancy materials, but he does them right. right? He's using these great materials well. Let me polish up this blade real quick so you can see. Polish it up a little bit. So you can see just how well done this mirror finish on this Damacor is, right? This is a Damacor steel here, and you can see here, oh yeah, that is a quality mirror on that. And you can see the etch is very nice. It's very deep. You can feel it quite strongly there, yet it is also very clean, right? They've done a very, very good job of that. The Damascus here is high-quality Damascus, and it's been done very, very well. It's been inlaid well. The pattern has been well chosen. It's just really good. The backspacer here, they're using the Damascus in a way that is not just like a purple piece, but you actually see the lines of that pattern welding in there. And the clip is done just beautifully. Herman is a person, a maker, who takes really nice materials and he gives them the absolute best treatment that they could deserve. And this is apparent even if you look at some of his other pieces. I know this is cheating, but it's kind of something I'm saying is endemic to Herman, right? This is very, very well done Damascus, and it's treated right. Herman does a really good job with dressy kinds of materials. And so, to me, all of that is the good, is that not only is he using fancy materials, but he's doing them right. He's got great action, he's got great details, a nice clip, great inlay work, and nice ergos, and a very, very nice little box. On the great side to me, though, the very best part of this knife is the blade. This has an incredible blade to it. It is a Damasteel Damacor blade, and so you can see that there is a Damascus-style pattern welding going on up here, but the core of this guy is a nice 61 Rockwell hardness steel, which is absolutely a great... I love Damacor. I think it's a very, very nice product. Apparently a total pain to work with, and in fact, you can even see, if we zoom in a little bit here, you can see that there is this central line that is the central steel down here, and then there are the wiggly bits to either side, which represent the wiggly bits to either side. This is just very, very well done. And you can see that it's been beautifully etched on the entire knife. It's been etched after the swedge was added, and it, by the way, does have a very nice swedge right here. It has a very, very nice thin tip and a very, very nice thin edge. This knife cuts like crazy in addition to being an absolutely beautiful, and then the mirror finishing on this guy is great, right? This is just really good Damacor. I wish desperately that every Damacor on earth could look this damn good. Herman has done an amazing job with this particular material, which is why I keep enjoying it. And this is not the first time he's done an amazing job with Damacor, right? Although this is a slightly different approach, keeping the mirror on this side rather than, but still, it's just really good. And so to me, what's great here 100% is the blade, not only because it looks good, but because it cuts well too, and knives need to cut well, damn it. So that to me is the great part. The bad side. To start with, this is not bad so much as weird. If we zoom in a little bit and look inside of here, what we're going to see at the very bottom there are the words proudly made in Poland in English. I am not an expert on Poland. I'm going to come right out there and first say that, but I believe over in Poland you speak Polish. And so it's a little weird to me that, proudly made in Poland, say it in Polish, right? Be proud. Why not? Give me the translation, write it on the card, right? I get that probably a lot of the collector's market is in English-speaking places, but dude, just go for it. Why not? Anyways, just seemed a little odd, not a big deal. Next thing, this is a big boy. Oh my God, is this a big old knife, right? If we go on ahead and put this up against a ruler, we're going to see this guy is coming in right around 3.75 inches, maybe a little bit longer if the cop really doesn't like you. And so as a result, this is going to be big un. This is going to be illegal in a number of places with a 3.5-inch law, and it's going to be intimidating to a whole bunch of people, right? Herman Knives tends to like doing very large knives. I think the Vespatilio is the smallest of his I've seen, and even that's not all that small. I kind of hope Herman does something a little smaller at some point in time, but this is a big boy. And it is also not a lunchroom safe knife, right? If you take this guy out of your pocket in the lunchroom to open up your packet of salad, I mean, to be fair, this is like fancy enough that Edna from HR might imagine, oh, that's nice, as she dives under the table to call a SWAT team. But still, this is a very, very intimidating knife, particularly with a little bit of a Bowie look to it. This is a big old knife. It's fancy enough that you might get away with it in more places, but still, for a lot of people, this is going to be scary. And I know that for many of you, that doesn't matter at all. Oh, you don't have to worry worry about what they think. Well, the thing is, if you're in that situation, you're very deeply privileged. But for many, a knife that is this big and ridiculous might land a little bit wrong, and so it's something I do want to point out before you go ahead and make the purchase there. Next thing, this does indeed have a bit of a pocket pecker. It is nicely chamfered on all sides there, but this will be pecking a little bit on whatever's in your pocket all day long. Although, again, with the way that this is designed to hang in the pocket, for the most part, it shouldn't interact with other things. It's a thing to consider. Next thing, the pivot on this guy. So what we see here is that this guy is using a Torx style pivot. And I'm sure that there is a Torx head that does fit this. In practice, I ended up just using the little wrench kind of guy that they provide with it, which you just slot into place, and then you're able to kind of rotate, rotate, rotate. I do wish, though, that Herman, rather than including something like this, would actually include like a little barrel style thing that you can actually twist. Right? If, something that, was actually either that was a bit or, an actual driver of some variety, that would just be a little bit nicer ergonomically speaking. And if you look at like Michael Raymond or some of the other super high-end makers who make their own tools, they will very often make a vertical tool where this is at the end, so you can use it in that way rather than this kind of horizontal levery tool. I get that this uses smaller stock and whatnot, but yeah, it's a little bit of a downside there. I do appreciate, though, that there probably is a Torx bit you can fit in there. I just didn't happen to have one that fit well offhand. Next thing, this is an expensive knife. This is a very, very pricey knife. As configured right here, this is $2,200, and that is a lot of money. That is a ridiculous amount of money to spend on a pocket knife. I'm going to fully own that. I am a ridiculous man. For a lot of people, and more importantly, for a lot of people, that takes this completely off the radar. I'll again say that the base price of this guy is $700, and if the action and construction and whatnot are just as good on the base models, then you know what? Okay, that's pretty. But this is a lot of money, and it will be cost prohibitive to everybody, right? But at the same time, holy crap, is this nice? And mastery does cost money. So it's one of those things where absolutely not. This is not your value choice. If you're just looking for a first pocket knife, I'm not sending you here. I mean, there's an argument for one and done, but oof. But at the same time, I don't really feel like I'm being ripped off because everything here is done very, very well. With the final possible exception of Disassembly. Herman Knives, I am a big fan of at this point in time, but Disassembly is a weak point for them. Herman Knives struggles to make knives that are really easy to take apart, right? Because this has loose bearings in there. The individual bearing cages are there, but all of the bearings within there are loose. And actually, one thing that is worth noting is that Herman does include loose bearings in the bag. This is not something I knew when I did my Disassembly video at first. I just put the bag aside and not noticed it because it was on top of the custom knives patch there. But he does include the bearings, which is why this isn't bad rather than ugly. But I still kind of wish that they were using a method for bearings that didn't require tiny, tiny, tiny loose bearings. It's a little bit of a pain in the neck. And then just generally speaking, putting the thing back together often includes, like you're trying to get this part in while you're doing it was a pain. If you watch the Disassembly Odyssey, it was an Odyssey, 100%. And so Disassembly is absolutely a weak point for these knives. It is just kind of a pain to take apart. And if you don't need to, I generally recommend against doing it. So to me, all that's the bad is that Disassembly is not great here. It was expensive. It's using kind of a weird bit here. The pocket pecking is a bit of a thing. It is not lunchroom safe because it is a big boy, and they are proudly made in Poland in English. So anyways, there is nothing ugly here, so let's go to the final conclusion, which is that, oh my God, is this thing nice, right? And it's nice for a bunch of reasons, with nice packaging, with good ergonomics, with great inlays, great details, a beautiful blade, a great action, and not just fancy materials, but excellent use of those fancy materials. It is proudly made in Poland, not in Polish. It is a big boy. It's not lunchroom safe. It's pocket pecking with strange pivot tooling. It's very expensive. And Disassembly, not so much of a strength, but this is quite good. It is expensive. I'm going to be, again, very clear about that. But Herman, at this point in time, I think is earning these prices. Herman, I will say, is among the very best production knife makers on earth, right? Herman has shown me over and over again that he can go toe-to-toe with any of the high-end CNC makers, right? Brian the Doe, the Grimsmos, Kodig Knives, Holt, Shirogorov, Skiff, Herman. They are all kind of at that point where it's just like, they're not necessarily better or worse than one another. They're just doing different things with really, really high levels of mastery. There are definitely old master type makers who are able to exceed this cohort with incredible slow handwork, right? But not by all that much. Certainly not anywhere near this price, and it's not like you can get one of those anyway. So whatever it is, I'm not going to sit here and say Herman is the best knife maker ever, because it's really hard to tell at this level, right? You are so far up the curve of diminishing returns that they're all just neck and neck, right? But at the same time, Herman is in very, very good company. And more importantly, I would say that, a lot of people say, well, Nick, if you got all these high-end knife makers, how do you choose which one? For me, the thing that makes Herman most unique is actually that treatment of the materials, right? Herman is very, very good, not only at working with fancy materials, but at doing them very, very well, right? This is the Ishtar right here. This is the Sting, and this is, and in each of these cases, we see that not only are the great materials being used, but we see that they're being used well. They're being done exceptionally well. That's where Herman stands out to me, right? Not only are the materials being used, but they're really, really dialed in. I would say that may be the thing that Herman is doing best. You do pay a bit of a price when it's time to disassemble, but that's a price I'm willing to pay. Because honestly, if I'm walking around, Blade Show or something like that, and I walk up to a table and I see a knife, I see this knife on a table without, knowing anything about the name of something, this is really, really, really good, right? It would be a very pleasant surprise. This is towards the top, and frankly, there's a good chance that even at a place like Blade Show, this knife on a table would be the nicest knife in the room. I don't say that lightly, right? But Herman is at a point where it is very, very, very hard to say that there are knives better than it. Certainly in the production custom, production custom. I don't even know what these things are called anymore. But the high-end CNC production world, they are roughly all equivalent, and they're really, really good. This is a really, really nice knife. And more importantly, you might be thinking that I'm getting like a manicured view, right? Because I'm only seeing these from Herman directly, but actually, his work has been pretty remarkably consistent, both in the things that I've seen across my table and what friends have ended up with that I've gotten to handle, and as well as what patrons and colleagues have picked up. So I don't think he's just making the really nice ones for YouTubers. I think he's just making really nice knives. It's a really hard thing to confirm, right? But at the same time, I've seen enough data that I'm just pretty generally impressed, right? And he's been improving over time. Every one of the knives I've gotten from Herman has been better than the last one, and that's the kind of thing you like to see, and that's the way that Herman may eventually just kind of break up out of that field, so to speak, and truly claim the crowd. So anyways, if you are looking for a knife, if you're just like, hey, Nick, I'm looking for a pocket knife, what do you recommend? Probably not this. I mean, sure, if you got $2,200 to spare, sure, do it. Yeah, why not? Have fun, right? But at the same time, just opening boxes and envelopes with this, maybe not. That might be overkill a little bit. But if you are a collector, if you are a high-end collector and you want to try something that is amazing, this is amazing, 100%. This is one of the very best pocket knives I've ever handled, right? So this is a gem. It is ridiculously good. It is ridiculously expensive, and it is, frankly, kind of ridiculous, generally speaking, but it's an absolute joy, and it is very, very well done work. So, Herman, well done. Keep it up. Keep growing. Keep pushing it forward. Maybe something a little bit smaller. Just throwing that out there. But overall, really, really impressed. And so if you're willing to spend the money and you want something that is over the top good, then this little Mantis might be exactly what you've been praying for. Get it? Praying Mantis joke? No? Okay. Anyways, hope this has been interesting, and have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.